Right, well, I make it 10 o'clock, so welcome everyone to this meeting of the Infrastructure Committee. It's good to be here in Wanaka for the first time. Well, it's the first time in this group anyway, so that's great. And thanks to everyone for coming today. We've got some member of press here too. So we'll get on with things. We've got to clear the meeting open at 10 o'clock. We've got no apologies received today. Any declarations of conflict of interest? No. Very good. No matters lying on the table, and we do have one speaker scheduled for the public forum. We've got Mr. Dave Henderson. If you'd like to come forward, Dave. So you have 3 minutes, which you know, I think. And,
sure.
Yeah, we've got obviously.
I'll use it very carefully. Go on. You okay for staying? Thank you. Thanks, gents and ma'am, for allowing me the time to speak here. I sent you an email last night. I mentioned that most of you have seen that email. I hope you have. That was a précis of the key points here. My issue here, primarily, I got this report on Monday, had the opportunity to read it. I'm not averse to the proposition that Valentine Road be the ideal place for this materials recovery facility. But if it is funded, the report is fundamentally flawed to the extent that the only inference for me is that it's been deliberately written to exclude our site, which is the yards at Victoria Flats, as a potential. I brought some colour imagery around it. If you'll allow me to, I just walk through here to circulate it. The land in the back is our site, and you can see, actually, and this does it equally well, the extent to which we're currently developing the site and have advanced all the services into the site. And the land in the foreground of that A4 image is the town's landfill. And that's the beauty about this site, is that it is tucked away in behind the city's landfill with no domestic neighbours and in a location that can't be seen from any road, highway, or whatever. Forgive me. Which is what made this site attractive to me as a proposal for an industrial development in a town where the industrial land prices are the highest in Australasia. So we've proceeded over the years with putting that development together. And one of the things that we aspired to do on the site was some form of resource recovery park and other materials recovery facilities. I highlighted the key issues in that email last night. Some of them are a tad egregious. The proposition is that that site is 50 kilometres from the Wakatipu Basin. I doubt there's a person in this room that would accept that. It's 25 kilometres from Frankton, just to put it in perspective. The requirements are going to be an 18-wheel articulated truck to come all the way around through the Kawara Gorge to Valentine Road. The second thing that's frustrating is that 20% of what does go to the materials recovery facility ultimately goes to the landfill. That's a significant chunk of that material that then gets loaded into articulated trucks from Valentine Road and taken back a round trip of 160 kilometres to the landfill. As you can see, it's not quite as far for us to go to the landfill. There's been no engagement with me whatsoever, notwithstanding the fact that I've always made myself available to any council, councillors, council staff, council officers that want to talk to me, and happy to come into town at any stage to have a discussion about any opportunities, not only related to this land, but anything else I would always make myself available for. And then the final thing is the suggestion that the site should be discounted because there is consenting issues and no services going into the site. That's a complete nonsense. As you can see from those imagery, we're significantly advanced with putting all our roads in there. We've let our contract for the electrical coming in from Victoria Flats Road. We've done all the engineering for the complete reconstruction and sealing of Victoria Flats Road. We're sitting patiently waiting for an EA to drop out of council, which we hope might even be this week. It's a 6-week contract to upgrade that road and completely bring it up to standard. And all the other services, you know, potable water, irrigation water, fire and stormwater have all been engineered, and contracts, if they haven't been let, we're just in the process of letting for all those. We've got a subdivision consent, and we're anticipating titles will be available March, April next year. So this facility could be established very quickly, right next to the landfill, in the closest possible site to Queenstown, which of course, as everyone knows, is where the bulk of the materials that are going to end up there are originating.
Very good.
I'm open for questions.
We've used up more than your allocated time.
No, have I? Goodness me. Well, for that, I apologize.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, David.
Right, so the next item is a confirmation of the agenda. The resolution is that the agenda be confirmed without addition or alteration. We're going to move on from that. In a second there. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Confirmation of minutes of the infrastructure committee meeting held on the 29th of August 2024. Has anyone, I guess we've all had a chance to read through those minutes. Any corrections or adjustments, Nikki?
I'm happy to move.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
No other anything to adjust on this? Okay, so the resolution is that the minutes of the meeting of the 29th of August of the infrastructure committee be confirmed as a true and correct record without alteration. Moved by Keith Heading and seconded by Lyle Cox. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. All right, so that takes us to item 1, which is the additional parking restrictions under the traffic and parking bylaw of 2018. The report author is Hugo de Kospisak, roading engineer. And I'd like to invite Hugo and it's Ben here as well, Ben Greenwood, to the table to present the report. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Good morning. Good morning. Take the report as read and welcome.
Any questions? Thank you.
Not of any major consequence or anything. Just looking at item 4, Coronation Drive, which is the mobility parking bay. I'm just wondering why that's the location and not closer to the courthouse. I know it's probably not a significant difference, but just I'd ask the question.
Yeah, no, very well. The only issue is getting them from the vehicle to the footpath. There's no curb ramps or suitable curb ramps for them to transition.
Yeah.
And in this location, there's 2 driveways nearby that they can. Yeah.
Thank you. It makes sense. I was sure there was a reason. And just clarity on item 6, which is page 24, that there's 2. It's just because I didn't understand the diagram and I haven't visited the site, but there's a change to parking 15 minutes. That's separate to the mobility bay.
Correct. Yeah. 2 spaces there. Yeah.
Awesome. And the last one was item 12. I'm not sure which it is. Yeah, I was just wondering why the yellow lines, the no stopping went on for so long. Just whether there could have been a couple more parts in there, whether there was a reason for that.
It's to do it with the centre line and the edge of curb, but there's not enough width for vehicles to park and also for a traffic lane. So the traffic lane was too narrow. So then the yellow lines were put in there so there's enough width for a traffic lane.
But there's still 3 parking spaces, so it's not wide there either. Does that make sense?
Further down the road, there's no centre line, so you can just do full width curb to curb.
Oh.
And then
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the secondary question: is could the centre line be shorter? And I guess because there's also this rule about parking 6 metres from an intersection anyway. Standard rule.
Good question.
Yeah.
I think the centre lines are just a standard length. they're 30 metres long.
Right.
We have an appetite to start shortening it. I think it's a national standard.
So in an ideal world, you'd have your standard 30-metre centre line, but you'd have enough space in between the centre line and the curb that cars could pass if cars were parked 6 metres from the
If
intersection.
the road was wider, then there would be space for parked cars and a traffic lane. It's just for really just for traffic safety near those intersections.
Sorry, jump in there, Nick, you've got
That's all from me, actually.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a few just queries and clarification going through. So, just to confirm, so you're going to have no turning into Beach Street either way. Is that what we're proposing here? So how do vehicles get into Beach Street now?
By cow lane link, alternatively, by the council have the
Makes
bollards
sense.
dropped.
Oh, what's right?
By request to council, have the bollards dropped to access the building.
Okay.
Right. No, I had a question about that too. So those bollards can only be dropped on request, by request. They don't come down at a certain time of the day for deliveries.
What we were observing, Brad, running down the new streetscape, so the bollards are being installed to help improve safety for users of that area.
It's also a traffic light issue. I mean, the whole stream of traffic behind just gets stopped when one person's trying to cross the flow.
I can understand no turn road right turn, but left turn, if you're going to have anything, you have a left turn in because if you're not allowing traffic down there, so it's not a shared space anymore. Is that right? So was this the intention of the original design for Beach Street? I don't know, I wasn't around then. That's quite a significant change if you're.
Prior to the town centre upgrades, it wasn't a street for cars to regularly use anyway, was it? That section of Beach Street.
That was Beach Street.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think I was surprised after the upgrades with the removal of the bollards that people were using it.
Yeah.
It sort of became a road for cars again, where it hadn't been prior to the upgrades. So now we've just gone back to the situation where
That's what we've done, so I don't know if I can answer your question, Lyle, about whether or not that was the intention of the design, but we've responded here to safety concerns that we raised after the project was cleared up.
someone's driven into one of those bollards recently, and I think I saw one of them was bent. Yeah. Anyway, those signs are already in place, aren't they? I see. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Carry on.
Yeah, just to follow on from what Megan, just on the mobility parking, I think I understood your explanation, but I understood that are mobility parks better at the actual end of that? Would that be too far away from where people want to go? At the end of a parking lane rather than the middle? If you get two cars and people trying to get mobility gear out of the rear of the car, it becomes a bit of an issue. I just wondered. So you can have, with that orange marking is, you can have two cars parallel park right front and right behind it, right?
Up to the edge
Up
of
to
it.
the boat.
Yeah, up the boot, right, yes.
Yeah, I think the 6 meters the standard length.
Want to speak up a little bit?
Oh, yeah, 6 meters is typical standard width to allow for a bit of movement
Okay,
from the rear or the side.
okay, that's right. It was just a general question. We've come across it one other time when we're asked to put it at the end of the bay because of very greater access for.
Typically, yeah, yes.
Next
It's an
to
interesting,
Sorry.
it's an interesting problem. Not, in my experience, not all mobility parks are equal because some people have a hoist at the back of their car if it's a van or something and they need the space at the back to access. Equally, there's side access hoists and they really need quite a lot of sideways width that and they're quite limited in which parks they can use and obviously you couldn't use it in here because you'd be right into the street corridor. If you had a side access, a right side access, you could do a left side access onto the curb, I suppose. But yeah, anyway, they're quite different. I mean,
Okay, that's right. Sorry.
Just to add to that as well, I think the general principle with a lot of these is that we're retrofitting it to the existing network.
Yep.
So as you guys explained, there's some compromises, pluses and minuses for different locations and where they're selected.
Okay. the turning bay on page 26, there's still the no stopping lines. Most of these circles, it's unusual to see cars
Not parking.
end on parking like that, isn't it? Usually if they're parallel park around or park against the curb, there would be room for turning within them. I'm just surprised to see that. Is that a problem, is it?
Which item is that, sorry?
Page 26, it's, I don't know what street, Bird Place, Lockie Road.
Lockie Road, yeah.
Oh, mate.
It's just a general thing on turning circles, if you're saying no stopping and all.
Possibly, I've been on that street and it is, cars are proliferating on that turning here, and even if they were parked parallel to the curb, it's still slowly turn around.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not familiar, but too. Yeah, just on the on page, what is it? Peppercorn Terrace. Can you just explain what what's the green line there? What's that showing?
Yeah, that's linked for 2 parking spaces. It's looks like there's enough space for 3, but it's not. They sort of overlap frequently within a meter of the driveway. So the lines there just to make that clear that there's only space for the 2 parking.
So parking allowed there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just from experience, if you put in hockey sticks to, I think people love to be controlled by markings on road. That would really tidy that up. A couple of hockey sticks in each end.
That Peppercorn Terrace one, so that's just that short section. In the table, it calls up that it's a sight line or a sight distance issue.
Yeah.
So I took it to mean that because there's a driveway for the next door property right there, that they were being blocked with.
That too, yes, yeah. The property boundary comes right up to almost the back of the curb, and then the fencing of that property does obscure the sight distance.
So the 1 metre back from the driveway doesn't work far enough. The standard 1 metre back, you're not allowed to park within 1 metre of a driveway, so that doesn't work adequately there.
Yeah, correct. It's well, two issues. Yes, yeah, it doesn't work there.
Once again, if you're marking with hockey sticks, I don't know how much that costs, but that really delineates the.
We can always add those as well, Lyle. I think it's just around most of those streets and that subdivision don't have hockey sticks now,
Okay.
but they're
Right.
yellow lines featuring there, so
Okay.
just try and keep some consistency.
Is there an enforcement benefit in having yellow lines as well? If there's no yellow lines and they've got your cars hanging over the back of a hockey stick, there's probably nothing you can do, is there? Whereas if there's yellow lines, there's a rule you can enforce, a fine that applies.
It'd be better to do both rather than just hockey sticks, or yellow lines are sufficient.
Not sure you want to encourage parking there, would you? Because the idea seems to be that there's these little insets where the cars are supposed to park. It's quite narrow, yeah.
It is there.
Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are you done?
Yes, thank you.
I think, yeah, I was just interested in, so on page 19, and look, I fully understand the challenge of finding this right balance between, we've been in the, I suppose, the practice that more often than not, we're applying new restrictions rather than taking them away. In this case, we're taking away those stopping lines on one side and retaining them on the other, but it's only a 5 metre wide road. I'm just sort of trying to work out how, in some cases, we're putting them in for that reason, because there's not enough room. If you've got a car that's 2 metres wide or roughly, and then you've got 3 metres, there's clearly not enough room for 2 cars to pass.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to work out what's the driver behind removing a restriction that was obviously put there for that reason.
It was, more when there was a link towards the town. I think traffic volumes are a little higher now that it's being cul-de-sacked via the arterial bypass. We're expecting traffic volumes to be lower, and reducing the street to a single lane is appropriate and allowing
There's no through access is the main driver there. Okay, and that the same applies on, well, that's Ballarat Street also further up, is that right? Allenstein Street end.
Both of those photos are the same bit of Ballarat Street. Page 19, just on different.
Okay,
different
sorry,
angles.
right, I hadn't appreciated that. Thank you. And yeah, just also around those intersection separation lines, I'll call them. So like on First Street, on page 21, for instance. I just fear that if we're consistently applying that to everywhere where there's a centre line across the district, I can think of examples in Wanaka like Link Way or Reese Crescent, for instance, we're not just applying the 6 metre rule, we're also applying a pretty high restriction in those cases. That just concerns me a little bit. Are we applying that consistently, and is it a reasonable and fair thing? Well, are there some undue consequences there around the loss of parking, particularly in those sort of semi-commercial areas?
Yeah, they're done sort of on a complaint basis.
Right. Have there been complaints on First Street, for instance?
Yes, from this one, yes.
Okay, so that is complaint driven. And what was the other one that was?
Sorry, the Ross Street was request from the clients sort of tying up with the Franklin intersection works.
Okay, right. Is that an additional control to the ones we looked at last meeting? So is this driven by the Queenstown package works, or is it a separate to it?
I imagine it's part of the works and possibly just formalising it.
Okay, so last meeting we did a package of traffic changes. This is additional to that. It wasn't part of that, presumably.
It should be additional, basic. There shouldn't be the same changes appearing twice.
So you're confident that there's good reason that these need to be applied, as opposed to, consistently applying that to all separated intersections around the district?
That's a good question, Quentin. A lot of it just comes down to resourcing, as you mentioned. It's done at the moment on an ad hoc basis because we haven't gone and done a full network review of our line market. It would be quite a significant task that we've got resource for right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just signal that we'd like to be super careful not to do that, because I think that'd be cause.
I agree. I think it's really going to dangerous here, but we're looking at the impact of doing it on a consistent basis throughout the district. And there are all sorts of implications, and we're going to be very careful where we go. But basing it on complaints.
Well, I think the point is we're basing these two on an exemption basis, not on a standard basis across the district. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct, but if further complaints were received at other locations, we would consider that
on an exemption basis.
And,
okay.
I mean, we're not saying that every time we get a complaint, we get marks and lines.
I just want it to be really clear that we're dealing with it on an exemption basis, not on a standard basis. That we're not applying this principle.
Every time we paint the lines, we'll come to the committee with the work. So we're not heading out to apply the same principle across the network at present.
Thank you. And just the other point, I don't know what those bits of land are at the front. Are they vacant sections at the front, or are they reserve land or something? I'm not
On the street.
Yeah.
It's a road reserve.
It's road reserve, so there isn't a need for vehicle crossing or something into that, the driveway or anything into that site. So that's fine. Okay, fine. Yep.
Just heard a couple of them. Following up on what we just talked about there, I mean, obviously, First Street and Ross Street are issues that have been identified in the periphery of the Queenstown package Franklin intersection work. There's a lot more traffic on those streets now because various roads have been closed.
I wouldn't say it's a new issue though. I think those roads, people do turn around those corners quite quickly and happening across parked cars with another vehicle kind of coming towards you in the opposite lane. It's not ideal.
Just on the Burst Street one, what number was that? 3. The opposite side of the road, only has yellow lines on the corner. But I mean, just looking at it, it looks like the lane's slightly wider. There wasn't a consideration of extending the lines on the opposite side of the road for the full length of the centre line as well. Or need, correct? One of the cars that's parked there looks like it's on the footpath anyway. So, yeah, I wasn't sure whether there's, whether it's more of an issue on the lane that people are turning into from a busier street rather than turning out of the street.
Don't think so, Kevin, but you're right, it is wider.
It's slightly wider, I think, isn't it?
I'd have to check the measurements, yeah, possibly as wide enough.
It's the ultimate aim that if you've got a car parked on one side of the road, that you've still got two lanes for the moving traffic near that intersection to pass each other. Which may well be the case. That's all right. Yeah, I did have a question about that, the mobility park on Coronation Drive. My question there was that driver exiting their vehicles, exiting onto a live lane.
Do that a lot.
Yeah, that's my question, yeah.
Yeah, that's the challenge of roadside ones as opposed to perpendicular.
It's
Yeah.
not unusual to have to do.
It's not great, but it's not unusual.
Interesting. Do we have some sort of policy on creating, effective mobility parks, or we do?
Sorry, I was nodding as in that's a good question.
Oh, awesome.
Ideally, you'd indent it slightly into the.
I just wonder if there's an opportunity through this parking management strategy to kind of insert a bit more guidance around how we can do it really well and make them really effective regardless of where you exit from your vehicle, because
Check the code of practice and see what that
Yeah.
reference is and see if it's in there really.
thanks guys.
Yeah, and the only other one that was only a comment
Sorry.
really was the Stanley Street one. Sad to see that go because I've parked in their lots. Although it has been unavailable through a lot of recent work around town, but yeah, I was wondering how long it would last. It's good. No other questions for anyone else? Right, well, the resolution is that the infrastructure committee note the contents of this report and approve changes to the new and existing restrictions applying to the on-road and off-road parking restrictions as set out in attachment A, which we've just been through, and B. These will come into force once signed or marked. Do we have someone to move that?
Yeah.
Nikki, and second. Nikki Ferg. All in favour?
Aye.
Right, carried. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks guys.
Thank you.
This to item 2 is the regional material recovery facility options assessment. We've got Sophie Mender and Brent S.
While I was speaking up, I think Sophie just got a brief presentation just to go through in terms of the contents of the report, just to give you some sense of that. I thought it was a good way of just identifying what's in the report and provide some context to that. Just in respect of Mr. Henderson's comments this morning, rather than try and deal with those things now, my suggestion would be that we agree to meet with Mr. Henderson offline with staff, work through his list of concerns, try and make sure we get the report corrected where needed, and then relook at that evaluation. So just reflects on those, and we can take it from there. Noting, of course, that this is a report that updates on progress on that. There's no decisions today. There's seeking endorsement for the broad approach, and any decisions will need to come back to, in this case, probably full council, given the significant decision that we do make.
Can I just ask for clarity on that? Because it does read as though this eliminates, reading through that whole report, it does read as though it eliminates that option and others and reserves the CODC land as the backup if Valentine isn't great for an in-district solution. I think it's pretty clear. I read it very carefully. So I'm just interested in how we move forward, making sure that all options then come to the councillors rather than limiting it. So I really support a review of, in light of recent developments, but also making sure that this recommendation that we're agreeing today doesn't prevent that option coming in full to the council.
Well, you've got the ability to, if you think that the recommendation doesn't do that, you've got the ability to.
It's not possibility to tweak the resolution.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
so that's,
We can think about that while we listen to the
Yeah,
presentation.
sorry, Gavin.
that's right.
Right. Thank you, Chair Bartlett and elected members for having us here today. And
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we've all been
Yes,
sent
thank you.
the copy of this
Oh, yeah.
presentation, so if you wanted to, I think John, you've just sent that around all.
it's short. I've just sent you 10 slides that I'm going to go through.
Oh, I thought that was for the workshop.
No, so
Can we?
We've just received something now, just by email.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, it just seems odd, like, I'm not sure governance wise what the rules are about introducing stuff into the agenda that wasn't.
So,
I don't think it's anything new. I think it's
No.
a summary of what was
It's just
already.
for me to talk to some
Yeah.
slides.
so in the past with some more complex reports, we've actually done a presentation just to take it, rather than have Sophie sit there and talk through it. We thought that in this case, because of the complexities, would be more useful to run through and gives everyone the same sort of understanding. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. We can take
No,
all
just-
three of them.
Noting that we haven't seen this, so.
But there's nothing new in here.
Yeah,
This
okay.
is the content of the vast report that you've got. So it just summarises that. There's nothing new in here. It's all that. But if you don't want to have it, then
No, we don't
I'm
have
not
it.
saying that, I'm
So-
just.
It stops me going off track.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. It does keep me slightly more focused. And as Tone has already said, this is an update on the progress because we've been doing a lot of work and we've got to a certain point with that work that I'm really keen to share. And so hence the entirety report that was done jointly with Morrison Lowe is with you, and an accompanying agenda report kind of summarising that content. So it's an update on progress, not seeking a decision on any final options, but just to describe the process that we've been through. So we identified our needs, which are broadly for Queenstown Lakes District, Central Otago District, the commercial sector, for the next 20 years, what our recyclables needs would be, because our current facility located on Glenda Drive, Frankton, is beyond its functional living life. It's nearly 20 years old. It's costing us a lot of money to sticky plaster the problems that we're having. And we need a new one that's fit for purpose, that meets the current demand and future demand. We removed Central Otago's ability to access that MRF to meet the demand coming locally. And we've had discussions with CO that they are keen to participate in a future MRF that would be accessible for all of our needs. We developed a concept with MRF designers BJ Scarlett, which said that for the next 20 years, we would need a piece of land, roughly 9,000 to 11,000 square meters, which allowed for a building, for truck movement, storage, parking, etc. Needs to be relatively flat land. It needs to be zoned industrial. It needs to be able to house a building, a large building that is a height of 10 meters. And it needs to have access to basic services and road access. We identified 12 possible options in this round of assessment. Some of those we've previously considered when we undertook this exercise a couple of years ago, and some of them were new options. We developed criteria to assess the options that are aligned with the 30-year infrastructure strategy and, of course, our waste management and minimisation plan. And at all the stages throughout, we were working really closely with Morrison Lowe reps and stepping in at certain milestones with a broader council staff team, which was waste, ops and maintenance and planning and strategy and finance and property teams. There was basically 2 phases of assessment, a long list moving to a short list. This is a brief look at our picture of what happens in the lower south for recyclable materials. And I think it's really valuable to give this context. So once through a MRF, once the material has been sorted, compacted, baled, etc., eventually any of the materials in the lower south needs to go to Christchurch, Timaru, Dunedin or Invercargill to go on a ship to go to the markets. And this is an interesting point in terms of the emissions profile of transporting recyclable material. The map shows the locations of the ports, distances to MRFs relative to Queenstown Lakes, and shows where the existing MRFs are, or potentially MRFs to be built. And although those coastal MRFs in Invercargill, soon to be Dunedin and Timaru, are far away and attract additional transport related costs and emissions, etc., we do have to ship these materials eventually to the coast. QLDC and DCC are currently sending their recyclable material to Timaru for processing. Dunedin is in the process of building a new MRF. It's going to come online in 2026. Once that MRF comes online, there will be capacity at that MRF and at the Timaru MRF. So at the moment, Timaru is at capacity, no room at the inn, but as soon as Dunedin's is ready, we will potentially have access there. So I've just brought up the long list to short list process. There's the 12 sites down to the 5 options. So whilst the initial focus was to determine the best site for a MRF within our district, we introduced the concept of this out of district MRF because it doesn't require significant capital investment and it could shoulder us for the time basically now until a new MRF is available. If our current MRF has such a failure that we can't move materials through it, bale them, sort them, compact them, then we'd be looking at sending that material to landfill, which is obviously not a good place to be in. So that's why we introduced the out of district option. Let me just check. Yeah, some options excluded from the long list were similar to each other, but ultimately inferior to those that moved through to the short list. Others had significant capital cost risks that we couldn't mitigate. So the long list assessment left us with the 5 key options, which still have risks, which is why we're continuing to explore them all as potential options. All right, just a quick look at the breakdown of the investment. So this shows capital investment inclusive of construction costs, plant and equipment, land acquisition and leasing costs where applicable. And this is what we use when we were assessing the financial viability of each of the options. The key variations include that option 3, Cromwell McNulty Road, was pretty unique because it assumed that the land and the facilities would be leased from the owner and therefore an external party would be receiving those that revenue. Option 1, Valentine, uses land already owned by QLDC, which eliminates the need for land purchase costs. And it shows that the residual values, despite the low likelihood of selling the facility or said land at the end of the 20 years, including the residual value to QLDC of the purchased asset, was still considered appropriate. I'm going to keep it going because there's only a little bit more and we can get into some questions. Second up are the transport costs. And here's an indication of their impact on the MPV. The transport costs are included from a point of consolidation in either Wanaka or Queenstown. So they don't include the running around in a curbside collection truck. This is about the point of consolidation for those materials with a hub in Wakatip and a hub in Wanaka. The costs obviously vary significantly due to the differences in distance in the material handling processes. Key findings include Valentine Road, among the asset owning options, basing the facility in Wanaka incurs the highest transport costs, obviously because of the distance that materials need to travel from consolidation points in Queenstown to a MRF in Wanaka. Option 6 are out of district option. despite processing materials eventually being shipped to export ports across all the options, the initial transport costs to a Dunedin-based MRF are notably higher. This increase is attributed obviously to the truck and trailer volumes and the relative compaction rates for material if it's unprocessed and needs to go to port unprocessed and still higher volume. Unfortunately, there's still significant quantity of contaminated recycling that comes from our collections that then has to end up going to a landfill. In the event of a MRF being located outside of the Wakatipo, then that material would have to come back to the landfill in Vic Flats. And costs associated with that are built into the model. It's about twice as expensive as dealing with contamination locally.
So from Dunedin, it would have to come back from Dunedin.
No. If the
Gotcha.
MRF was in Wanaka, contaminated recycling would come back to Queenstown landfill, not from Dunedin. And for Dunedin option, the costs of that contamination we just built into a gate fee rate at a Dunedin MRF. So we didn't do it would just be a higher gate rate and they would deal to that landfill. Where have I got to? Financial. Options assessment in phase 2 presented the following ranking of the options based on weighted scores. Oh, wait a minute, no, I've jumped ahead. Right, there we go. The financial analysis provides a detailed comparison of the operating costs across the different options. The potential risks and limitations all need to be considered to understand the broader implications. Key variables that introduce uncertainty to these costs include the discount rate that we would use, the out-of-district gate fee to access the MRF, fuel costs, residual land values, and capital cost for an in-district MRF. So to assess the impacts of these factors, a sensitivity analysis was undertaken, which showed that all of the options have a degree of sensitivity to the changes in these key variables. So it's hard. We're working on a lot of assumptions. So given the close financial outcomes and the significant uncertainties in this high-level financial forecast, no single option stands out as a really clear financial win leader. Subsequently, the determination of a preferred solution leans more to requiring significant weight on the non-financial factors. So briefly, in the non-price scoring, we've got the table here. Options assessment in the phase 2 presented the following ranking of the options based on weighted scores. Minor changes to any of the scores result in a shift in the options ranking. So only option 3, the Cromwell McNulty Road option, scored sufficiently low enough to rule it out. It's the least flexible due to the site owner's desire to maintain control over site activities. Valentine Road is the highest scoring option, closely followed by Cromwell CODC, well, Cromwell Community Board land next to the CODC refuse transfer station in Cromwell. Both these options provide the best scores for cost control, commercial risk resilience and sustainability, service delivery and strategic alignment. Valentine Road is the option that's the most advanced from a development perspective. We already own the site. And we've already started geotech and planning assessments for the site because we're upgrading the refuse transfer station. The site was purchased with the intention of it potentially being used for waste and resource recovery activities and potentially building a MRF on this site. If it can be done cost effectively, it would be aligned with this purpose. There is, however, lots of known challenges with this option and likely to be geotech site contamination issues to work through, as the site was previously a landfill and is adjacent to river flats. The additional costs for the development of this site have been included in the estimate as a contingency. The extent of these challenges and the associated cost to remedy them can't be estimated without further engineering, environmental and planning investigations. These investigations would be required for any site being considered for a new MRF, and what we might uncover during those investigations at any of those sites still remains unknown. The in-district backup option. There's benefit in having backup site options if costs associated with Ballantyne Road become prohibitive. Just a quick note on the out of district option. If we establish an out of district option in the short to medium term to mitigate the risk of total failure at our existing MRF, then a long-term option of going out of district could be developed if council wanted to defer capital investment. It's not mine. It did score high for achievability because the out of district option is already in progress and much further towards being operational. Still have some challenges such as procuring transport contracts and securing suitable gate fees. And it has a very different cost structure to the in-district options. However, it's easy to achieve, has low commercial and financial risk in the short term. Long term, the ability to control costs and rely on this option obviously reduces. For this reason, it's being considered as a short to medium term solution only. Nearly ready. Right. Ballantyne Road option scored consistently well in the assessment. Other options scored almost as well. Changes to weightings or key assumptions have a significant impact on the ranking. It's made it very difficult to rule out options, but at no time has Ballantyne Road been on a list of those sites that would be ruled out. The Ballantyne Road is the highest scoring option, has challenges, but it does manage overall risk to council. We've commenced geotech, already noted that. However, whilst doing some initial geotech, we haven't got a site master plan, and so it is causing some issues with existing stakeholders as to their future residency at that site and expansion of any services that we could do on that site if we don't make a decision on whether or not that site has a MRF.
Just being a little bit.
So currently the site has Wanaka Landscape and Greenway Services that deliver services for the district for the removal of organic materials. It's significant volume of material that is being processed and beneficially used locally, and the intention is to ensure that that service is still available and viable. Wanaka Wastebusters have visions for growing the scope of what they offer to the community. They haven't got any proposals or plans in front of us, but they are really keen to explore more land opportunities to expand on their activities. Until we have a site master plan for the potential moving of people or placement of any additional services, it leaves a great deal of uncertainty to the existing tenants. And I think we are pretty much there. Based on all of the progress and the uncertainties, the proposal is that we continue to look at Ballantyne Road as a good solution, that we continue to explore opportunity to access an out of district MRF for a short to medium term, that we need to investigate sites for consolidation for any of these options. What the progress on this would allow us to do is to move on with, when we decommission the Frankton MRF, we can upgrade our refuse transfer station, which is currently beyond capacity and not fit for purpose. So we also know that that site only has room for a refuse transfer station with perhaps some additional diversion of material, but essentially we can't continue to operate a refuse transfer station in the constrained space. So making a decision to move the current MRF off that site and access an alternative does allow us to progress with the RTS. We haven't done extensive consultation with OCAHA or TAMI, the iwi reps. We have brought them on board at a high level through Arn and our relationship there, but we do need to do further consultation. I think that's probably enough from me. And we get into some questions.
Right. Thank you very much. It's a good presentation.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work to try and present some salient points for those of you that haven't read the 50 pages in the report, but hopefully you've got a bit of a sense if you haven't read, and you'll be so excited to go home and read the full report now.
We'll read it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for your work on this. It's pretty complex in terms of the moving parts around. To what extent, and you touched on a little bit in that, you know, and ironically, the McNulty Road one, you've identified as a risk because we don't control it. The flip side of that is that could be an advantage to us, because it's not our problem. We're just engaging in a service. So I'm just trying to understand the extent to which the different models, the service models, if you like, but one extreme, us owning and controlling and even operating. I mean, usually we use a third party to operate, right through to completely outsourcing, just putting it to market and us just paying for a service. And there's a big spectrum there, and I don't get the full picture through the report as to what are the advantages and disadvantages of those different models. Now, each of those sites have got different tenure, have got different, you know, so that's hard to, we're not really comparing apples with apples, because each one drives a different model or a different cost implication, and, you know, capital cost is a big deal for us at the moment, of course, because of, you know, so just trying to understand. And even, you know, if there was one in Cromwell, for instance, is a joint services model on the table? Are there commercial operators who are interested in doing a build and operate model on any site? You know, I just don't fully understand that.
Nor do we in full yet, which is why the intention is to develop a procurement plan, a procurement strategy that gives us much more information about what those different models might look like and the benefits, disbenefits of each of those. So we haven't done that deep dive. So this point in time, the intention is that we're saying, hey, we still need to do that. And that will add to all of the information to be able to bring back for a good decision.
You sort of touched on it too, but, you know, for me, 16 versus 18 points isn't really enough to rule any of those out. And you're comfortable that each of those are still on the table to be involved in a procurement or a model development as we move forward? We're not just going to put all our eggs in one basket and go.
That's not the intention. The intention is that at the moment, the model has said that the highest scoring one is Valentine Road, but because of that sensitivity, we clearly need to keep those Plan B options in the mix. And none of them have been kicked out.
Yeah. So
apart from McNulty Road at this stage.
And a couple of other questions and comments. So, look, it doesn't sit particularly well with me that we just cart raw, unsorted recycling to the coast, and even in the medium term. I mean, look, I get it as an option if our MRF breaks down, you know, we've got to have options there, but I don't think we should be relying on that as even a medium term option. I think we need to work at sufficient pace that they're dealing with the problem, not just carting it out to the coast. And I just doesn't sit comfortably that it just feels fundamentally inefficient that we're carting unprocessed recycling to the coast, Timaru or Dunedin. You know, so I'm not particularly favourable to relying on that. Have you got any comment on whether we you know, what's the best case scenario here in terms of us? What's the quickest we can solve our problem and get something on the ground?
Maybe 2030, hopefully sooner. Yeah. Yeah. So that is a really difficult situation to be in. To get one up and running locally is going to take a few years, and hence we need to move on working out which option we're going to go with. What we're trying to do with the out of district is say, we need to have some of these conversations now to say, if we don't have access to an in-district or inland Otago option in the near future, we need to be ready to be able to move our recyclables to a MRF. And at the moment, the earliest is 2026, mid 2026 is to Dunedin or to Timaru. The interesting thing that we discovered was 2 years to 2.5 years.
Anyway, I mean, I'm not, it's no criticism of you, but I struggle with that. I mean, it's, you know, we deliver all sorts of big projects. I mean, that and I'll throw that to Tony. We need to find a way to do that earlier than that. I mean, I know that anyway, well, we've got to make that work because that's not practical. And, you know, you've said that's already end of life, we're already past the use by date. And in terms of Valentine Road, sorry, look, I think it was a good decision, council, to buy that land. I think there's some great optionality there. I'm noted that recommendation 4 says that will commence work on a site master plan. I was under the impression that it already started and was hoping it was sort of reasonably advanced. Is that not the case?
The site master plan was focused around where's the best place for the refuse transfer station within the site. What it didn't extend to was where's the best location for all of the other users and the things that the outcomes that we're seeking from them or others, where would that locate on the site? So there's a space between the two that we did a little bit of forecasting to go, if this, then maybe Wanaka Green Waste and Waste Busters could go here, but it wasn't a definitive process that said, yeah, if the MRF was on this site, it would go here. And consequently, the best place for all of the rest of the users of this site would be here, here, and here. So we need a bit more certainty for those service providers that are using that site. And we also need to look at what the maximum best use of that site in its entirety is in relation to our waste goals. We haven't undertaken
Yeah,
that.
well, yeah, like I said, I mean, I hope that we were more advanced as trying to support Waste Busters and the great work that they do, trying to ensure the continuity of the green waste and, you know, maximise any other, you know, opportunities for that site, including the MRF. Anyway, I think we need to move at pace with that a little bit to give the operators, you know, particularly those other two parties, certainty as well as ourselves. Look, I'll leave it to others. I mean, I don't know where this fits in terms of understanding what the market can provide, being an RFP or something to go, well, what other, I think the commercial partners out there might, I don't know, there might be more opportunity there than I or less opportunity than I realise. I want to understand what those are, I want to understand what, you know, the different scope and Trojan and Dave and whoever else can bring to the table, you know, the market can bring to the table in terms of, you know, build and operate, whatever it is, I don't know, but we need to see what the market's got.
Agree, yeah.
Sorry, I've dominated it.
I was thinking I'll ask a question now, sort of segues Quentin's point, just in terms of, I hear a lot from the local social enterprises through, you know, Waste Busters and why in terms of localized processing and shredders and other, like, is there scope to help develop a near-term mitigating solution locally at the existing site at Valentine as another open-minded way of helping manage the existing problem.
Do you mean a near-term solution for processing recyclables?
Yeah, well, like with collaborating with the social enterprises in order to sort of help them grow, and then I don't know. I think we're all just trying to find a spot in the middle or on the spectrum versus the big jump, or at least something that helps keep things from getting diverted into landfill, essentially.
When it comes to recyclables, we haven't discussed that option with any of those providers, and it certainly hasn't been presented as a potential solution. Not to say that there might be something there, but it's not something that we've explored.
Cool. It's just something I've heard from some of the players in that space in terms of manufacturing, building their own open source machines and localized shredders for fairly cost-effective rates, and sort of helping be a part of the story in a way. So if it's something that we're open-minded to assessing as a part of the wider picture of, you know, how to manage the overall problem, just the engagement.
8,000 tonnes throughput at the moment would be required.
Sounds like a fun challenge.
Yeah, just through the chair, we know that this has been work in progress. Read the Murph. We continue to walk on broken glass around the reliability and functionality of the Murph. I just want to know how much of a risk is time. Obvious.
Simon Mason isn't here today, and he talked to our senior management team yesterday about time, and we don't know. We are sticky plastering the existing MRF, and we are hopeful that we can continue to do that until there's a solution. We don't know if there will be a failure to the point that we won't be able to process material. But at the moment, I'm sorry, I don't know the additional cost per year outside of our regular contract that it's costing us in sticky plasters. It's something the team will have for sure.
So, yeah, fixing the chemical plant.
Yeah.
There is a cost to do that. It has been maintained, but there is a cost. And there is that fear that there will be some catastrophic failure that causes a real problem. But at the moment, it's carrying on.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just a question around one of the big assumptions around needing to transport everything to port. And I know it's how we do it. But we're looking at circular economy and we're looking far into the future. Is it a valid assumption to assume that there are no markets for any of that resource that are here now or that may develop in the next 5, 10, 15 years? And I am thinking green waste and cardboard is a obvious, sort of synergy. But beyond that, have you thought about that?
Sorry, green waste and cardboard, meaning the fibre cardboard going to green waste, or do you mean?
Into a machine, so as in Glenorchy, when we have a composter, obviously we have the green waste, but we need the cardboard and other carbon heavier rich material to make the compost. There was just one thing that stood out to me, but there may be others in the future, like somebody may decide in Cromwell to set up a fence post project where they use the resource, if the resource is sorted and available locally.
We'd be really keen for central government to lead a national infrastructure plan for moving towards a circular economy, because it's the goal of the national waste strategy. Unfortunately, that has not been forthcoming. And so it's very challenging to work out where those hubs might be for a more localized repurposing of materials. To your point about cardboard, there's still quite a lot of concerns of adding cardboard to an organics solution because of the chemical makeup of labeling, dyes, etc. So it's usually not the best practice to receive cardboard as part of your organics solution.
Presumably depending on the type of cardboard.
Yeah.
Your question is more, is there have we heard anything about anyone looking to set something
And
up?
also more like, have we thought about if the material was available, would somebody take that opportunity? Are you eliminating an opportunity by just sending it out unsorted to Dunedin.
Does that come more into the waste management and minimisation plan rather than dealing with what
But
we've
they're
got
linked
to deal
up.
with?
You mean like reducing what we send to port by having our own sort of,
Yeah, but not us
But they have
leading
the
it,
answer.
by just the fact that
Yeah.
there's an opportunity in, we have the plant here. And the stuff is here, and it may or may not get picked up, but if it is here, there's that opportunity, and that may not have been factored into decision making. I'm just thinking, how do we think differently? And how do we ensure that our current biases, which are not negatives, everybody has them, but how do we, when we do these assessments, make sure our biases, and I think Quentin alluded to it, maybe a little with the, and I got a sense of it, we maybe don't want a commercial operator to build it. We sort of want maybe our own or another council. I don't know if there is that bias in there, but I didn't see the other options fully explored. And how do we make sure when we do these things that we're not eliminating future opportunities and we're not letting our biases impact the report? If that makes sense. And sort of here's my next question, because we don't need to answer anything there, but I just want to clear up, because Mr. Henderson's raised it. Was he, because on page 42 it says stakeholders were consulted, and that
So we won't
included.
go too much into that because we've already had indication that. the
Oh, I
staff
know,
will
but I
meet
just want to
and-
be clear, because I think it's what goes to where we're at now. It says representatives of property owners were spoken to. I just want to make sure, was Mr. Henderson spoken to
Well,
through this process?
We've already talked about it. He's going to be the offers being made.
I
to-
don't,
to
but I'm
Nick,
asking a
isn't it?
question about whether he was through the process.
We didn't. Mr. Henderson has been talking with Simon, Mason and I over the proposal around resource recovery opportunities at his site. And specifically for the options assessment, no, Ms. Henderson wasn't talked to. Where we talked to owner operators was around the leasing of a site in Cromwell. And then where we were looking at sites where we needed to do a land purchase, we used a local property valuation company to do an estimate on the land prices.
So when it says in there that the landowner prefers to sell the land and that the cost would be 400 per square metre.
That was from the property valuation
Not from the landowner.
professional
Just wanted
company.
to
Yeah,
clear that up.
it is, I think it's in the report who we used. I can look it up, but it was a registered property valuation business in Queenstown.
So sorry, I just had a couple more questions, just for clarity. So given that there's now a subdivision on that site, do you think the scoring remains valid? Because I'm not sure when
We
the
don't,
subdivision.
we don't need
comes.
to answer that now too, because there's going to be more work.
But I can ask any question. I won't come.
Well, we've already established that there's going to be some more work
But-
into that.
Yeah.
So rather than having people answer the question now before that work, we'll wait until that work's been done.
Okay, I'll ask a simpler question. Why was the fact that the subdivision consent had been achieved not reflected in the report? I think it's important.
Our understanding was when we did the report, the consent hadn't been received for
But
that.
the
And-
staff report, so there was.
Oh, right, was unaware of any progress on consenting at that site.
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Yeah, I think the
sorry,
report
Mike,
was
one
dated
more just-
August and it probably
Yeah,
happened in
report is dated
September.
August, and the staff
Yeah,
report is
but I need
based
to be
on.
very.
I was
clear
unaware of
because
that.
What we've just discussed at the start of this meeting is new and it's not in the agenda or the report, so I just wanted to be very clear. Sorry, and the last one was on the financials. So on page 43, you've done a breakdown of the costs and sort of compared operating costs and capital costs and sort of merged them together. And you're looking at a 20-year operational cost NPV. How long will we expect a MRF to last?
20 years.
That's it.
For the
Okay.
So for the internals of the MRF,
Yeah.
a building could last longer, but the actual processing, which is consistent with what we're seeing at Glenda Drive,
Yeah.
is 20 years.
Okay, so, right. So I'm just as a heads up, I'm just intrigued about to dig in a bit more into the financials and look at if we undid ourselves, what's the depreciation? Given the growth of the community, what's the ultimate cost to the ratepayer? It's a little difficult to take the capital
Sure.
costs and just add them to the operational costs without sort of
What's
understanding,
the impact?
the assumptions and all the other stuff
I'll note that down.
goes with it. Thank you. So yeah, that would be great.
So but just noting though, if the assumptions are the same for all options, then it's not so much that whether those assumptions are right or not, because they'll need to be tested. But it's testing, comparing those different options. So if the assumptions are the same for all of them, then that neutralises that.
Well, it's a little bit different because we've got out of district versus in district. So just making sure that we understand. I don't know. It just seemed I couldn't
Just break it down more.
break it down more would be great. Thank you. And the last question, sorry, ears and eyes. It's not good. No, carry on. If I get it, I might see if I can squeak in another one, but I think I'm done. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Lyle.
That's right, most of it's, I won't be repeating it. Just a couple of quick clarifications of definitions as we read into the resolution. We're talking about in district, we're talking Central Otago District and Queenstown District.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Inland Otago versus coastal Otago is sort of how we've been thinking about it.
Just following on from the point raised by Nikki, are we budgeting, we've got in the LTP for capital costs, but if it goes to a out of district thing, it's basically operational costs, right? Do we have any coverage for that in our?
All land costs, because,
Right.
all land costs, because you could buy a piece of land out of district.
Yeah, but no, what I'm trying to get at is, we've got LTP for capital, I'm just making sure that if we do an operational type, which is more emphasis on operational, that affects the operational budget. I presume that's been taken into account somewhere in the thought process.
For the current LTP, I suspect we have based the operational cost on the contract cost that we have for the current MRF arrangement. I'm sorry, I would have to clarify whether or not we put any thought into the operation OPEX of an alternative solution in the LTP, or whether we maintained the current solution for OPEX.
I don't think that we would have put in the LTP any substantive change reflecting what the options might be, because you simply don't know.
Yeah, and I realise that. I just want to raise the point that if we're looking at an out of district, which is maybe more an operational expense, we'd have to consider that as we do our future budgeting.
I suspect the LTP version probably made the assumption that we're using the Delta land to down in the. No.
That one's not in the
On one
LTP.
stage.
But if we do a commercial arrangement with some entity to provide that, then that would be an operational.
So I don't want to repeat too much, but just picking up on some of the comments you made, I think we've mostly covered all that you didn't have some of the information. You made the comment Valentine was the most advanced, but we're starting to get information that maybe the Gibson site's more advanced, and so that you just explained that you didn't have all that detail. Right? And McNulty Road, you also picked up on it. You discounted it, but it was raised in saying maybe I think it was after Councillor Smith was saying about looking at options. So you think you've been premature in discounting anything or not, based on some of the comments and thoughts we made?
We discounted McNulty because the land that is potentially for sale adjacent to the Cromwell refuse transfer station was a higher scoring option.
Okay, right. And the last point, just not really a question, but picking up on it, comment. I know it doesn't seem right to be carting recyclables to the coast for recycling. I know Central Otago are currently doing it, but in a shorter term, it's likely to be more palatable than taking it to the landfill. I guess that's the other option. If you don't take unprocessed recyclables to the coast, what are you going to do if we haven't got a MRF? You'd be dumping them. Yeah, is that right?
That leads on to one of the questions I had too. So, yeah.
So I'm just looking at what we're doing here. I know we want to do it as quick as possible, but if we have to cart recyclables to the coast, that's much better option than dumping it at landfill.
Yeah, clearly.
It's
Yeah, no, I'm just
more
trying,
aligned
I
with
know,
all of our
it's
goals.
what goes, the messaging going out there, we're saying we're not happy about trucking recycling deal, well, you got all, if we, in the short term, we haven't got any other option, maybe that is the best option. Yeah, may not be that palatable, but.
My point was we shouldn't be planning to rely on
Yeah,
that.
I understand what
in
you're saying,
the
yeah.
medium term, that that we should be planning for success, not planning for less.
We've got to have
ideal
some backup, yeah.
scenarios.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well done, right, so. Excuse me. Oh, I had a similar question too about.
Yeah.
The out of district option, whereas. We have had instances of them recently where the move has been unoperational. Hold on a moment.
Yeah, all right.
And whether or not we shouldn't have that out of district option as a backup plan, regardless of whatever other option we have in place, or whether we shouldn't already have that in place. So that if the move does cease to work for some reason, whether it's staffing or a malfunction, that we've got it as a backup rather than going to landfill. Is what I was saying. So I've sort of wondered whether, you know, like I say, whether that shouldn't be something we're considering separately from any other option that might be coming out.
I think we're kind of saying, yes, we should be having discussions with the people who provide those services, or will be, so that we have that optionality. Yeah.
Whether it even came about as, you know, you might have one rate for emergency use while we've still got a functioning plant, and then, you know, if it came to a point where we no longer had a functioning plant, we were going to use it, you know, on a regular basis, that there was a different rate negotiable or something. But yeah, so that was sort of, it's been just when I've been reading these options floated around in the back of my mind, it's something that we probably need to do anyway. And especially given, you know, as we've been told numerous times, the tenuous nature of the existing plant.
They mentioned it in Cargill though, I know.
Invercargill don't have capacity. I think there's some early discussions about how they are going to move forward with that. Yeah.
I know you said Dunedin doesn't currently have capacity, does it?
Doesn't have a MRF yet, it's going to Timaru, but they have already progressed work with consenting, planning, environmental, all of that to build their MRF. They're on track for a mid-2026 opening implementation for that. Yeah.
So all of Dunedin and all of Central Otago all goes to Timaru, does it?
Correct.
Yeah. And they don't have any reserve capacity at the moment. But possibly for an emergency situation?
No.
Right. So at the moment, until the new one opens up in Dunedin, we are stuck with landfill as our only option.
Unless there was an unusual dip in demand at Timaru, and yeah, obviously we'd be making that call, but our understanding is that no, there is no capacity of Timaru.
And yeah, okay, that's good. And I can, you know, you mentioned the time frame when you were asked. I can see how that 6 years would very easily be used up for such a specialised piece of plant with, you know, given we're not even at a stage where we've made a decision to build one at this point. So 6 years would go quite quickly, I imagine. I know it seems like a long time frame. And then you think, well, if the plant's only operational or only has a lifetime of 20 years, you know, you need to start planning for the next one, then don't you, halfway through the life of the first one.
Or at least a renewal program.
Yeah.
I just on that point, I would say that 6 years is common in local government. It's not common in the private sector, so we need to be learning how to deliver things at pace.
Can I just ask, it's not directly, well, it is relative, but I don't know if it's covered in here, but we've been told before, what is the current ratio of recyclables between the Wakatipu and the Upper Clutha? Is it about 60-40?
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously the population is increasing here, so it's potentially going to balance out at some point in the future anyway. So, yeah, I mean, if it's 50-50, but even if it's 60-40 or 40-60, it doesn't make too much difference where it is in relation nearer to one or the other, in my mind. Obviously, it's coming up in the report as well. You see new trucks from either direction, they've got to meet in the middle somewhere. The other thing was, there's been today a reference to the percentage that goes to landfill. Do you know off the top of your head?
17, I think, at the moment. Yeah.
I was surprised to see the figures that showed that the dealing with contamination to landfill was It's quite a high percentage of that overall cost. It was twice the cost of actually taking it to the.
Well, you've already processed it and then you're
So that
sending it
includes the
back to
cost
the
of
land.
processing it and then returning form. Which is, I guess, what makes it so important to try.
Do the right thing at the curbside. Yeah.
Right, I've got no more questions, so.
Right, that's one another list here. Or...
Yes, I'll let you, yes.
I don't know the details of it. We hear a lot of publicity about what's being proposed at Waimea. I'm not sure exactly what that plan takes, but is there any, because we're talking about initiatives and other ideas out there, is that a source of selling some of our recycled product to a plant like that? I don't know what it does. I think it's
an incinerator, isn't it?
Incinerator type plant, but I don't know what it produces. There's a fair bit of controversy.
Nothing. Heat and a whole bunch of fly ash.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not interested in finding out what that, or is that an opportunity for any of our products?
But you wouldn't send recyclables to, it's not for recyclables.
Okay, that's why I wanted to.
It's not in line with objectives and goals of the waste management and minimisation plan, nor the New Zealand waste strategy.
Right, thank you.
Did you think of your final question?
Yeah, I do.
Things like getting live on each.
I've finished.
So just around those dates, you mentioned 2030, but in the report, it does say that there could be something developed, and it was specifically for the Gibston side by mid 2026. That's what's written in there. So I just any thoughts on what's the difference with the timing and
I
how do we
can't
feel
remember
are we waiting?
why 2026. I think in recent discussions and looking at timelines and thinking about decision-making timelines and then doing the investigations, environmental consenting planning, then you're ordering all of your equipment and all of that. A reasonable time frame for 2030 as a perhaps more conservative timeline. I can't remember why we specifically called out a Gibston solution to be in 2026.
It would be useful to investigate it further and just find out whether that is something that's possible. And just the question around, is it faster if we did that contract model where private sector built it and we used it?
Yeah, and we would definitely
have we weighted that appropriately in our sort of decision making?
Yeah,
and need to answer.
Yeah,
I think it's important. I think the message is pretty clear around this group around it's important.
Okay.
I think we'll take that away.
On that note, if we were to enter into a contract for the provision of curbside recycling for the district, it would have to be through some competitive RFP process.
Yeah.
So it just specifies that.
Anyone else got any second questions on that?
Just on that point, it's I
You're
mean,
very good, Chair.
at what point does an RFP come into play? If it successful, because it will impact on your solution selection. You can't just choose a site and then go, here's put out an RFP. You've actually at some stage you've got to put out the RFP to put it in the mix,
or some early engagement with the market.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sort of what an RFP is. It's because it's looking for or expressions of interest or whatever it is, but it's not a tender process. It's like, what are the options out there? Looking at the proposal options. So, and then you can, once you've got some proposals on the table, you can then test them and come up with a, cost benefit analysis around what the outcome is. But anyway, I just need to give some thought to when is the right time to engage in a RFP or some other similar process to put it out in the market, test the market.
During the options assessment, we had some conversations with the key existing South Island providers, and all of the options were on the table for them in those discussions. So there wasn't a preference put forward for what a future model might look like. They were open to anything.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good report, great presentation. Answered all the questions. Well done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, so, sorry. So the resolution, quite a lot of resolutions at the Infrastructure Committee. One, note the contents of the attached material recovery facility options assessment in August 2024 and this report. Two, note progress on the development of a MRF solution outlined in this report, and that further work is proposed before a decision is brought to council to approve a replacement MRF solution. Three, note that work associated with option 2 to keep both a local MRF and out of district MRF option open will continue. This includes A, commence engineering, environmental and planning investigations for MRF at Valentine Road to enable risks to be further understood and quantified. B, to explore site options for the consolidation of material for both Valentine Road and out of district options. C, undertake further investigations with stakeholders associated with the Timaru and Dunedin MRFs to understand potential contractual arrangements for a short to medium term out of district solution. D, prepare a detailed procurement strategy for local MRF and out of district MRF solutions. And E, undertake a detailed carbon assessment for local MRF versus out of district MRF options, including transport. And 4, note the impact of the proposed development of Valentine Road on current leaseholders, waste busters, and Wanaka Green Waste and Landscaping Supplies, and that work will commence to develop a site master plan. Do we have someone to move that?
I just had a question relating to the recommendation, just a brief one. Does number 3 just mean that we focus too much on option 2 and not on the other options? The other options are on the table. I know that 2 says that it continues to work on, doesn't say options, but the things in the report for the replacement of the MRF, but then 3 goes on to say that we'll work on option 2.
Yeah. So it does. So first of all, what we need to do is move and second this one before we can then look at
Or we could just put an alternative.
Well, I'm just, anyway, just saying, are we covering, and this I think it's useful to ask it now, are we covering the case that we're continuing to work on those other high scoring options as well?
I am here, but if you want to clarify it with some wording in the recommendations, then happy to do that. But that is the intention. Yeah.
Does local include? It does go on to talk about Valentine Road. Local includes in the district, which we've already established as also includes QLDC. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if this really covers it because I've tried to make it brief so it's more easy to understand and palatable, but there's a lot behind it, right? But to Quentin's point around the contract models, I just wonder if to D, at the end of it, so it starts, prepare a detailed procurement strategy for a local MRF and out of district MRF solutions, and just if you have a dash for all contract models, would that?
That would be included.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
can cover that.
Yeah.
It's very clear then that it's covered.
It is covered.
Is there any objections to that?
I know it's covered.
I don't think it's necessary because I think a procurement strategy can cover that.
Okay, that's fine. I won't bother with that one. And I was thinking of adding a point F, review the scoring of the shortlisted options and report back to the infrastructure committee at its next meeting. I don't know if that timeframes
support that because the report is the scoring is the report. I mean, that is in the report. They'll continue to evolve the selection. I mean,
okay. I'm happy to reword it. I was
we're
just trying something on the fly, but I think we need to add something in there because I think it's very clear that it's about progressing Valentine Road and the Dunedin.
Mr. Chair, what about amending 3 Bravo to say for the consolidation of material for both the in and out of district options?
Just remove the Valentine Road.
Yeah, because we clarified what an in district option is, and so this
Remove Valentine Road at A.
replace it with in district.
We were talking about B, so Valentine Road.
Yeah, you can almost do A and B the same.
Well, and remove option 2 from 3. It's the first part of 3. So note that work associated with options to keep for both local and out of district MRF options.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll continue. This includes
Yeah,
blah 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 for in
delete Valentine
in
Road.
district and then in and out of district for B. Then that just
I
leaves
just think
it
it keeps us open to
Yeah, I agree.
other options.
as we have discussed during this meeting.
Well,
So, John, did you get?
I got B, I think.
Join the dots.
I can run it over and move it if you wish, if you want me to just speak to it. Okay, so 1 stays the same, 2 stays the same, 3 is amended. That note that work associated, that work continues, delete associated with option 2, that work continue to keep both local at MRF and out of district MRF options open will continue. Or something, you know.
Well,
close enough
I'm
there.
just reading, so option 2 in the report specifically says proceed with a hybrid approach to keep the local and out of district options open. So the main, and there's more after that, the main part of that doesn't specifically relate to any particular site.
So because option 2 is to keep that hybrid approach, which reflects the potential short, medium-term need to look at using the coastal.
Well, that's covered in C3C anyway.
I think
So if you
potentially,
take out option 2, that removes that direct reference to that. But that's
I think we are looking at option 2 on the report. So then we do need to keep option 2 there,
Okay,
because it's
right.
local and out of district.
Okay,
I think the
Just amend A
issue,
and B.
the issue for me is A, where it talks about commencing engineering, environmental and planning investigations for Valentine Road.
Remove
I think we need to do that
Probably a little
anyway,
stick.
because it's one of the key options that we control, so we need to do that. So it's only B that we need to change, that we continue to explore options. Delete Valentine Road.
So,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's still an asset under council.
So explore site options for the consolidation of material,
Both local and out of district.
for local and out of district.
But that's referring to the consolidation of material only.
Yeah, that's true. It's
So
not
you've got to
looking at
change
it.
A if you want to.
We'll come back to reviewing the scoring for
So
the
it's
short
A,
list
is- you've got to change A to include in district rather than Valentine Road.
you're no.
Tony?
Do you have any advice?
Well, you can just add.
This is why we paid the big bucks.
It's quite important,
You can
based
add
on our
another
discussion.
No, if you included all of the sites, I know that's a very large workload. We're actually quite specifically focusing on Valentine Road, which is a site that we know.
Which is why if we go back to just reviewing that scoring in light of testing the assumptions that were made in the report and reevaluate the other options to see if the scoring changes, because I think we'll find that it does. And I think we need to go through that process, and that will mean going and talking to
And I think
landowners.
this changing the scoring is not going to help me, because what I need is that cost benefit stuff when the options and the RFPs and everything are on the table. So the scoring doesn't help me at all. Changing the scoring of those doesn't help me.
It
What we need
removes
to
this
do is,
impetus to pursue Valentine because it's the best. Because it might not be, and I'm really concerned about building a landfill on a MRF on a landfill on the river flats. I think
Well,
we've done
okay.
contamination before, and there's a,
But that's all part of the process. I'm just trying to, I think the resolution is trying to reflect what we've been discussing and what we're trying to indicate to the staff. And we were trying to say that we don't want to, identify things that the Valentine site may not be the most advanced now. So can we please have a look at all the agreed options again in this resolution, rather than specifying Valentine Road.
Well,
I
that's
think
right.
it's
That's
the wrong
coming to
message.
with point 3A, where it says commence engineering, environmental and planning investigations at Valentine Road. I think we are just a step back from that. I think we've got updated information that's come to hand since the report was written in August. And it's just a matter of updating that with the information that we've received since. Is it as simple as that? For point A?
No, that'd be a completely different thing.
Yeah, different.
yeah,
I do wonder just maybe a new B, I hesitate to say, I haven't really thought this through, but as being something referring to keeping the other Otago MRF options in the mix or something. So that's
You could add to B and B, explore options, site options, further explore site options for the MRF and consolidation of material added for the MRF. And the out of district options, that's a real cover.
I
So-
think we have a risk that we're commencing on our preferred option based on the fact that it scored the highest, but the scoring chart is out of whack.
So
Well,
The scoring's achieved its purpose.
we don't know that it
We've
is.
shortlisted the options that we need to progress. We don't need to worry about the scoring anymore. It's achieved its purpose. They're close enough that we need to keep them in the mix. That's what we're reflecting here.
Yeah.
We shouldn't get caught up on the scoring that's already happened.
As long as we don't rely on it, that's.
No, but we need to keep the other options open.
So, but based on all the work we've done at the moment, in Valentine Road, they want to do further more investigation. We've got no problem with that. But at B, we can further explore the site options for the MRF and consolidation of material for both the in-district, in and out of district options.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Do you wanna write that?
Got that, John?
Lyle,
So
it's A staying the same then?
A stays the same.
No changes.
B, further explore site options for the MRF and consolidation of material for both the in and out of district options.
Or local. So
So just to clarify, we have a definition of in district and out, so that's why I asked the question
referred to as
before.
local everywhere else.
Oh, does it? Okay. Is local the same as in district?
No, it's probably not in district, but it's local. Multi road.
That's what I said in district.
So-
Oh, we have still got some Central Otago district options on the list.
Yeah. So local.
Is
That's
that
what
local?
you mean.
Yeah,
don't know
it's
what
not,
you mean.
Central Otago
Okay.
is not.
So maybe we know what that means.
We understand what that means. All right.
Local
That's
or-
what I was saying.
Are you moving, Lyle?
Well, I think what we have established is that local and in-district are the same thing, but it's referred to as local throughout the rest of the.
Oh, I just,
Okay.
local was referring to Central Otago in district versus Queensland district.
Yeah.
So, sorry, local includes
We'll
Cromwell.
just put Brandon, CODC and QLDC then.
We'll just put local. Local is.
Okay,
local is
Happy with local? I'll move
Yeah.
it.
Second.
Right, so we've got Lyle Cox's moved.
Do you want us to read out B?
There is it, yeah.
Up on the screen.
Further explore the options for the MRF and consolidation of material for both the local and out of district options.
Just in terms of reporting back on findings. I'm just,
We're going to move it in second.
Okay.
Second, yeah, I'm seconded.
So Lyle Cox has moved it and seconded.
Alright. I'll
So
just,
discussion.
without dying in a ditch over it, right, I'm just interested in how this next gets reported back and whether I need to put something into that motion about when it gets reported back.
But there can't be any other decisions made without, well, we can't make.
Two
any
says
decisions
that
that'll come
before a
back to-
decision is brought to council for the improvement of the MRF solution. So
Okay, do we need to, will there be further workshops and so on this or?
it's been brought to council for the improvement of the solutions. Improvement of the solution.
Do you reading something, you're saying that should.
Two, no, that's already there.
Yeah.
So that's more than sufficient to cover that it's coming back to us. So-
All in favour?
And that, and
Alright.
report to council can mean this committee or full council.
Oh, we would certainly bring it to this committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's role of this committee in terms of providing advice to the council.
Okay, are we all happy with that?
Yeah.
Very good. Any further discussion? Steve?
No, sorry.
Any discussion? Very good, okay. We've got an amended resolution, which Lyle Cox has.
No, it's just a resolution.
Resolution, yeah. Amended from what was in the
Yeah.
report. Seeing the working as if, all in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against, no, carried.
Thank you. Thanks for your work, Sophie.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Sophie.
much.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
That brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. Declare the meeting closed at 11:38.